Have you guys seen the full res versions of these new Stalker 2 screenshots yet? If not, I'm putting them right here in this video because I don't think I've reached this level of excitement for a single player game since the lead up to The Witcher 3 in 2015. This just looks incredible. Really, it's hard to believe, and I've seen a bunch of discussion on Twitter and elsewhere wondering, are these screenshots real or just completely pre-composed? I want to dig into that just a bit in this video, but really I just want to, I guess you could say, signal boost these because, like I said guys, the hype is getting real here. What's really cool about this latest batch of screenshots is, besides them being full 4K and PNGs for not much compression, make sure you guys check out the link in the description right down below so you can see these full res versions. But besides the quality of the screenshots themselves, it's the variety that really has me excited here. We've got some great vistas, a look at some of the weapons and characters, and some weather effects and underground areas as well. There's just a ton of ground covered in these newest screenshots. And if first impressions are everything, and these screenshots might be the first thing that you're seeing from the game, you've got some solid reasons to get excited even outside of them, because this is a franchise that is really unmatched in its ability to pull together a really unique atmospheric game that really was like nothing else at its time. I mean, for me personally, the Stalker franchise in 2007 was my Half-Life because, well, I didn't play Half-Life 2 until after Stalker, for one thing, but these are games that I have beaten multiple times, which is a rarity for me, and games that just did things so well and in innovative ways that were mind-blowing at the time. The dynamic lighting in the original Stalker games alone, where characters would run past a cage light and it would have a dynamic shadow, that was just absolutely mind-blowing in 2007, and now we're looking at these incredibly atmospheric vistas and, again, hyper-realistic interior sections here, and I'm getting really hopeful that we're going to have that level of dynamic graphics leap here with Unreal Engine 5 and Stalker 2 like we had in 2007 with the original game Shadow of Chernobyl. This really just looks like a generational leap, and again, this is a game with a lot of nostalgia for me. I mean, just the cage lighting in the original game alone has inspired me to redo all of my office lighting with actual incandescent cage lights. How's that for immersion for you, right? Now, the authenticity of these renders has been called into question, and I will call them renders here because they're very obviously carefully pre-composed. The lighting is set just right, the fog effects are tweaked probably, and it wouldn't surprise me to see that they've probably compiled these from a couple of different takes. But they are using in-game assets. On several of these screenshots you can zoom in and see the level of detail models at distance. You can see some of the aliasing and artifacting even at 4K. These do appear to be in-engine and authentic, just again, very, very carefully staged and possibly pre-composed a little bit. I'm really not too worried about them being overly faked though, because we have seen at least short clips of this game in action, and in my opinion these clips from earlier this summer easily look at least 85% as good as these still renders, and if the final game looks half as good as these screenshots, it's still going to feel like a generational leap in my opinion. These just look that incredible. Well, that's enough drooling over these screenshots as a whole. Let's look at a couple of small details that I noticed. First up, I want to look at what appears to be the Stalker 2 equivalent of the Rookie Village. This is certainly a settlement of some kind because if you zoom in, you've got your classic Stalker campfire, but also a table nearby with a number of condiments and food items there. You have what appears to be a fully furnished and operational bar with possibly a radio inside, and some kind of large tapestry there in the back, and then also a Stalker guarding a shed in the back. This is just a very populated area. Definitely a village, a populated Stalker village of some kind, but what has me thinking this might be the Stalker 2 equivalent of the Rookie Village is your gear that you're carrying right here. If you look, you've got the basic leather fingerless gloves, you've got your Makarov pistol, and what looks to be just a simple wool sweater of some kind. Not much radiation protection there. This looks like starting gear. So this might be our very first look at Stalker 2's version of that Rookie Village that we saw in basically every Stalker game. And again, as I zoom in here, you can see that while the overall render is incredibly lifelike, If you zoom in just a bit, it's clear that we have some flatter textures here amongst all of the 3D grass and rubble. I mean, just check out that awesome looking piece of log bark that's fallen off there. It looks incredible. But you still do have some flatter textures in there and some aliasing. And overall, this is definitely using in-game assets. And I really don't think this shot in particular is very staged at all. This looks really, really good, but still very down to earth for what the final game might look like. I'm going to hop over to what feels like a more carefully compiled screenshot next. This is a foggy rail yard here, obviously, with some combat with the radiated dog packs coming at you. I want to zoom in just a bit here and look at the engraving detail on this over-under shotgun here. That is incredible. I'm there. That is beautiful. This shotgun alone appears to have a Hunt Showdown level of love and detail applied to its textures, and that is really, really cool to see. GSC Game World always had a fantastic overall atmospheric game world, but to see this level of AAA detail here in Stalker 2 really has me excited to see the entire game elevated to what the original game's overall package was. The original games were a great package deal, but a lot of those small details, you had ejection ports on the incorrect side of the gun, you had other missing and incorrect details, you had some low-res textures, and a lot of that original game was cobbled together from different builds as they changed direction for what the original Shadow of Chernobyl was going to be. So the original game really had a mix of asset quality that we're not seeing here in these Stalker 2 screenshots. And again, this is marketing material, this is all carefully selected at best, but the consistent level of detail has me quite excited. Now, of course, the animations of the dogs here, how they're posed in the scene, I would almost guarantee that they ran this setup a couple of times, got some different captures, and then arranged the dogs how it looked, compositionally coolest and most dramatic here. Of course, if this is a true Stalker game, it's going to have some jank to it. You're going to have some dogs clipping through some objects a bit, but if the overall game looks this good, I think I can forgive that. I mean, we dealt with some crazy bugs in the original games and just some straight up hard crashes, and those games were fantastic. Much like saying that if the graphics look half this good at launch, it'll still be a generational leap, I think we can also say that if the game is half as buggy as the original, it'll still be a huge accomplishment. Swapping back over to our screenshot here of The Witcher 4, it looks like CD Projekt Red has gone in a very different direction with the game. I mean, seriously, I get some serious Witcher vibes from this path through the poppy field here. But I think their purpose with this screenshot was just to show off the overall rendering distance with a pretty bright and open time of day, and just that draw distance and the scale of this open world compared to the originals is really exciting as well. If you guys are familiar with the original game's development, they originally were hoping for these larger open world areas like we're seeing in this Stalker 2 screenshot, but due mainly to technical limitations back at the time, pre-2007, they had to really shrink down a lot of those open world areas in the original Stalker games until the later titles, the expansion packs, and kind of mini sequel games, where they could open those up a bit more. It looks like here in Stalker 2, we're going to have those much larger areas right from the start. And just zooming in again, look at some of this fine detail with the muddy erosion edge there of the cliff. I love that kind of stuff in, again, The Witcher 3, where they had, I guess you could call it hand-sculpted style terrain elements. Always love seeing that, adds a lot of realism to it. But also check out this house right here. The amount of layered detail in the destroyed rooftop over the porch, and then the rooftop over the house itself with layers of missing ceiling material. You've got moss, you've got leaves, you've got some spindly, very sickly looking trees trying to grow up over it. This is just a really, really convincing scene. Hopping over to what is no doubt some of the most stressful parts of the original Stalker games, the underground scenes here, we see that GSC Game World absolutely still has it. This is a wonderfully atmospheric screenshot right here, with more detail than I think we could have ever imagined back in 2007. I mean, Fallout 4 had some really great destroyed building interiors, but this just looks next level. The combination of just the amount of clutter, plus the what appears to be dynamic lighting with some really nice lens flares going on there for some camera effects, it all just comes together and is a really, really convincing scene It really makes you feel like you're in the exclusion zone as the mind controller here steps out and ruins your day. And this shot right here is really reminiscent for me of the first time that you meet a mind controller in the original game. And I hope that we have those kind of hero monster moments as they introduce new enemies in the new game, even though it is a larger open world, just because I loved how when they would have a new enemy type that you would be seeing more often, they would have a little scenario set up, usually underground, to introduce that enemy. And it really added some grounding and some cool jumping off points as you were exploring how they introduced those monsters in the original game. So I hope we see that kind of thing again in Stalker 2. Alright guys, we've covered the interiors, we've covered the exteriors. Let's just look at this one last screenshot here with an exterior and an interior, and most definitely some kind of anomaly going crazy here. I love the contrast between light and dark for this shot, but also this is some really high quality motion blur, and that might be a dumb thing to zoom in on, you guys might think, but it's one of the first things that I noticed. And showing these screenshots to Joel, a good friend of mine who is also a film producer, he noticed it as well. That's some really convincing motion blur, and I can't wait to see this particular anomaly in motion, because it's not just the small debris here, but it looks like some of those ground tiles, the larger ones, might be mixed up somehow in the animation. I would love to see this in motion. Just look at the atmosphere that this render alone is dripping with, guys. There's just no other franchise that can capture this foreboding, slightly otherworldly atmosphere combined with that Cold War grounded feeling. The Stalker franchise is just something unique, and the fact that we are getting a Stalker 2 and that it appears to be actually coming out in April, that's just, I almost can't believe that it's actually happening. Stalker 2, I've said it before, this game is going to be my Half-Life 3 if it's half as good as I'm hoping it is. For now, I'm going to stop rambling about these 5 screenshots. You guys are going to think I'm absolutely nuts. But like I said, this franchise is a big deal to me. I hope you guys are half as excited as I am. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.